In 1990, college football gave us one of the strangest national championship debates of the modern era. Not because two teams were obviously better than everyone else, not because one team was robbed by the system, but because the two teams that split the title had completely different arguments. On one side, you had the Colorado Buffaloes, a battle-tested team, a physical team, a team that played one of the strongest schedules in the country, survived close calls, beat Nebraska and Lincoln, beat Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, and finished number one in the AP poll. On the other side, you have the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, an undefeated team, a well-coached team, a team that allowed only 15 points per game, beat then number one Virginia on the road, dominated South Carolina, destroyed Nebraska in the Citrus Bowl, and finished number one in the Coaches Bowl. Colorado finished 11-1-1, Georgia Tech finished 11-0-1. Colorado won the AP National Championship, Georgia Tech won the Coaches Bowl National Championship, and the voting tells you how close and how weird this debate really was. In the AP poll, Colorado received 39 first-place votes. Georgia Tech only received 20. So the writers clearly leaned towards Colorado. But in the coaches poll, Georgia Tech won the national championship by one vote. One vote by Nebraska coach Tom Osborne, who played both teams this season. That means the 1990 national championship was not just split. It was split by the smallest possible margin. So today, we're going to settle it the only way split decision knows how to. We're going to look at the resumes. We're going to look at the rosters. We're going to look at the matchup. And then we're going to play it out in the national championship game that never happened. 1990 Colorado, 1990 Georgia Tech. Who's the real national champion? Colorado's case starts with one word: schedule. The Buffaloes did not take an easy road to the national title. They opened the season against Tennessee and tied the Volunteers, who were ranked in the top 10. They lost by 1 point to Illinois at Illinois. They survived close games against Texas, Washington, Missouri, and Notre Dame. But they also stacked up quality wins. They beat Texas. They beat Washington. They beat Oklahoma, they beat Nebraska and Lincoln, and then they beat Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl. That is the backbone of Colorado's argument. This was not the cleanest national champion. It was not the most dominant national champion. But it may have been the most tested team in the country. And when you're trying to judge a team from 1990, that matters. Because Colorado had already been in every kind of game. They had played tight games. They had played physical games. They had played ranked teams. They had played rivalry-styled games. They had played games where they had to come from behind. They played games where the offense had to grind out drives, and then they played games where the defense had to close. That experience is a major part of their case. Of course, with Colorado, we also have to talk about the controversy. The fifth down game against Missouri was one of the most infamous moments in college football history. Colorado was mistakenly given an extra down near the goal line, scored, and escaped with a win. And then in the Orange Bowl, Notre Dame had returned a punt return touchdown by Rocket Ismail, which was called back by a penalty, helping Colorado survive 10-9. So Colorado's title case is powerful, but it is not spotless. If you're arguing against Colorado, the case is easy. They had a loss, they had a tie, the fifth down game, and a controversial bowl win. But if you're arguing for Colorado, the case is also easy. They played the tougher schedule, beat more high-end teams, and had the better collection of wins. And when we move from resume to actual matchup, Colorado starts to look even more dangerous. The offense was built around the run game, and the best player in this entire matchup might have been Eric Bieniemy. Bieniemy was the engine of the Colorado offense. He gave them a physical, reliable, game-controlling presence in the backfield, and Colorado's rushing attack was almost a full yard per carry better than Georgia Tech's. That is a huge difference. Colorado did not need to win by throwing the football 35 times. They could lean on Bieniemy, use Darian Hagan in the option game, rotate Charles Johnson when needed, and make defenses defend the entire width of the field. That is one of the most important parts of this matchup. Colorado's option offense was somewhat quarterback-proof. Darian Hagan was the starter and a key part of the offense, but Charles Johnson also played meaningful snaps. And it was the constant threat of Mike Pritchard on the outside. Pritchard is a big factor here. Colorado's passing game may not have been better than Georgia Tech statistically, but Pritchard gave the Buffaloes a real explosive play weapon. If Georgia Tech overcommitted to the run, Pritchard was the player who could punish them. Defensively, Colorado had real star power. Alfred Williams was an All-American and one of the best defenders in the country. Greg Beaker would become a solid NFL player. Deion Figures would eventually become an All-American as well. This was a defense with future professional talent at multiple levels. Colorado had more NFL talent than Georgia Tech. They had the stronger schedule, they had the better rushing attack, and they had the more physically proven roster. This is why their case is so strong, but it still comes with baggage. Colorado's season was impressive. It was also very messy. And that is exactly why Georgia Tech had an argument. Georgia Tech's case starts with the cleanest argument in sports. They did not lose. The Yellow Jackets finished 11-0-1. Their only blemish was a tie against North Carolina, a 6-4-1 team. The tie hurts their resume, but it's still not a loss. And everything else about Georgia Tech's season made them feel like a legitimate national champion. They were coached by Bobby Ross, one of the more underrated coaches of his era. Ross won Coach of the Year in 1990, and this season is probably the best example of why. Georgia Tech was not the most loaded team in the country. They were not overflowing with NFL players. They had around 5 future NFL players, including the kicker, and surprisingly, All-American defensive back Ken Swilling did not play in the NFL. But they were disciplined, they were well-balanced, they were well-coached, and they got better as the season went along. Offensively, the Yellow Jackets were led by Sean Jones, a solid dual-threat quarterback who could throw well enough to keep defenses honest and run well enough to extend plays. William Bell may have been their best offensive player, and Georgia Tech had depth at running back. They're not a one-man offense, but Jones was the key to making everything work. Defensively, Georgia Tech was excellent. They allowed only 15 points per game, and Ken Swilling gave them a true All-American presence in the secondary. That matters in this matchup because Colorado's passing game was not dominant. If Georgia Tech could make Colorado play from behind or force passing downs, that Yellow Jacket defense had a real chance to tilt the game. Georgia Tech also had the better dominance profile. Colorado had 5 dominant wins in their 11 victories. Georgia Tech had 7 dominant wins in their 11 victories. That is not a small point. Colorado played the hardest schedule, but Georgia Tech more often looked like a team in complete control. And when Georgia Tech got its chance to make a final statement, it delivered one of the loudest bowl performances of the season. They beat Nebraska 45-21 in the Citrus Bowl. That matters because Colorado also played Nebraska. Colorado beat the Cornhuskers 27-12 in Lincoln, which is a very impressive win. Winning at Nebraska by 15 points is not the same as winning by 15 points at a neutral site game. But Georgia Tech's Nebraska win was louder. A 24-point bowl win over Nebraska gave the Yellow Jackets the final image they needed. While Colorado was surviving Notre Dame 10-9, Georgia Tech was blowing out the same Nebraska program Colorado had beaten earlier in the season. That contrast helped Georgia Tech's argument. Colorado had the tougher road, Georgia Tech had the cleaner finish. Colorado had the stronger overall resume, Georgia Tech had the better final statement. And their best regular season win was at Virginia, who was ranked number 1 at the time. That was a huge victory. They also had close wins over Clemson, a dominant win over South Carolina, a win over rival Georgia, and then the blowout over Nebraska. But this is where the debate gets interesting. Georgia Tech's win over Virginia was excellent at the time. But does it beat Colorado's wins over Washington and Notre Dame? I don't think it does. Let's go position by position. At quarterback, the edge goes to Georgia Tech. Sean Jones was a strong dual-threat quarterback, and Georgia Tech's passing game was probably a little bit more reliable than Colorado's. Darren Hagan was dangerous in Colorado's offense, and Charles Johnson gave them valuable depth. But as an individual quarterback matchup, Jones gets the edge. At running back, Colorado gets the clear edge. Eric Bieniemy may be the best player in this game. William Bell and Georgia Tech's backfield deserve respect, but Colorado's run game was more productive, more physical, and more central to their identity. At receiver and explosive weapons, I would give the slight edge to Colorado because of Mike Pritchard. Georgia Tech may have had a more efficient passing game, but Pritchard is the most dangerous receiver in this matchup. He is the player Georgia Tech has to account for every time Colorado shows option action. On the offensive line, Colorado gets the edge. Their rushing production speaks for itself, and their offense was built to wear teams down. On the defensive front and front seven, Colorado also gets the edge. Alfred Williams, Chad Brown, Greg Beekert, that is a lot for Georgia Tech to handle. Colorado had more NFL-level bodies and more proven physicality against elite competition. In the secondary, Georgia Tech gets the slight edge. Ken Swilling was an All-American, and Georgia Tech's scoring defense was excellent. If they're going to win this game, the secondary probably has to create a turnover or force Colorado into long yard situations. Special teams is close to a push. Coaching is also close, but I would give Georgia Tech the slight edge because Bobby Ross was excellent in 1980 and earned his Coach of the Year honors. So the board looks like this. Quarterback, Georgia Tech. Running backs, Colorado. Receivers and explosive weapons, slight edge to Colorado. Offensive and defensive lines, Colorado gets the edge. Linebackers, Colorado. Secondary, we'll give it to Georgia Tech. Special teams is a push, and coaching, Georgia Tech gets a slight edge. Resume strength, I give it to Colorado. Clean title chase, I'll give that to Georgia Tech. So let's play it out. Neutral Field, January 1991. Colorado and Georgia Tech meet for the undisputed national championship. Early on, Georgia Tech looks ready. Bobby Ross has a smart opening script. Sean Jones gets outside the pocket, hits a short throw, scrambles for a first down, and keeps Colorado from immediately taking over the line of scrimmage. William Bell gets involved early, and Georgia Tech's offense looks balanced. The Yellow Jackets strike first. A methodical drive ends with Jones making a play in the red zone, and Georgia Tech takes a 7-0 lead. Colorado answers the way Colorado usually answers, with the ground game. Bieniemy starts getting downhill. Hagan keeps on the option. Georgia Tech contains the first few runs pretty well, but Colorado keeps forcing them to tackle in space. The drive stalls, but the Buffaloes get on the board with an early field goal. Georgia Tech leads 7-3 after the first quarter. In the second quarter, Colorado's defense starts to settle in. Alfred Williams creates pressure. Greg Beaker is active in the middle. Sean Jones is still dangerous, but the easy yards start to disappear. Colorado gets the ball back and starts building the kind of drive that defines this matchup. Bieniemy for 5. Hagan Keys for 7. Bieniemy for 6. Option pitch. Short throw to Pritchard. Another Bieniemy run. Georgia Tech is not getting pushed around, but they're starting to feel the weight of the Colorado offense on them. Finally, Colorado finishes the drive. Bieniemy punches it in, and the Buffaloes take a 10-7 lead. Georgia Tech responds before halftime with a field goal drive. Jones converts a third down with his legs. Bell finds room on a draw, and the Yellow Jackets tie the game at 10. At halftime, it is exactly the kind of game we expected. Colorado 10, Georgia Tech 10. In the third quarter, the game becomes a test of discipline. Georgia Tech's defense makes a stand. Ken Swilling helps force an incompletion on third down, and Colorado has to punt. Then Georgia Tech finds its best offensive moment of the second half. Jones breaks contain, gets into the open field, and flips the field with a big run. A few plays later, Georgia Tech finishes the drive and takes a 17-10 lead. Now Colorado is under pressure, and this is where the Buffalo's season experience matters. They'd already been in close games all year. Tennessee, Texas, Washington, Missouri, Notre Dame. This team was used to uncomfortable football. Colorado goes back to the run. Bieniemy breaks a tackle. Hagan keeps the ball on the option. Georgia Tech starts creeping closer to the line of scrimmage, and that is when Colorado hits the play Georgia Tech feared all game. Option action pulls the defense forward. Pritchard gets behind the coverage, and Colorado finally connects on the explosive pass. Touchdown Buffaloes. High game, 17-17. Now the game moves to the fourth quarter, and this is where Colorado's physicality becomes the difference. Georgia Tech is still right there. They're not overwhelmed. They're not outclassed. They're not exposed. But Colorado's formula is more repeatable. Run the ball, force tackles, control the clock. Pressure the quarterback, make Georgia Tech drive the full field. The Yellow Jackets put together one more scoring drive, but it stalls in the red zone. They settle for a field goal and take a 20-17 lead. Then Colorado gets the ball with the national championship on the line. This is the drive. Bieniemy carries for 4, then 6. Hagan keeps for a first down. Georgia Tech sells out to stop the run, but Colorado keeps moving the chains. A short throw to Pritchard moves them inside the red zone. Then Bieniemy takes over. The Buffaloes run behind their offensive line. Bieniemy finds the crease, and Colorado scores the go-ahead touchdown. Now Colorado leads 24-20. Georgia Tech gets one final chance. Sean Jones has been good all game, and if Georgia Tech wins, this is where it happens. He scrambles for a first down. He hits a quick throw. The Yellow Jackets cross midfield, but Colorado's defense closes. Alfred Williams generates pressure. The pocket breaks down. Jones is forced to throw under duress. Incomplete. Fourth down. One last play. Jones drops back, looks downfield, tries to extend the play, but Colorado contains him just enough. Pass falls incomplete. Colorado survives. Final score, Colorado 24, Georgia Tech 20. The Buffaloes are the split decision national champions for 1990. So why does Colorado win this matchup? Because their strengths are more repeatable. The Buffaloes have the better rushing attack, the best offensive player in Eric Bieniemy, the best defensive player in Alfred Williams, more NFL talent, and a physical style that's built for a neutral site championship game. They can win without the passing game being great. They can survive if Darren Hagan is not perfect. They can use Charles Johnson if needed. And they can lean on the option. They can punish over-aggressive defense with Mike Pritchard. And they can close games with defense and the run. That matters. Georgia Tech absolutely has a path to victory. If Sean Jones plays a better quarterback game, if Ken Swilling and that defense forces turnovers, if Bobby Ross controls the tempo, and if Colorado's passing game becomes a problem, Georgia Tech can win. The Yellow Jackets were unbeaten for a reason. They beat Virginia. They beat Clemson. They dominated South Carolina. They destroyed Nebraska in the Citrus Bowl. They had 7 dominant wins. They won the Coaches Bowl, and they have every right to call themselves national champions. But in a 100-game simulation, I do not think Georgia Tech wins the majority of the time. I think Colorado's schedule, physicality, talent, and rushing attack gives the Buffaloes the edge. My final split, Colorado wins 60 out of 100, Georgia Tech wins 40 out of 100. The 1990 national championship debate will always be complicated. Georgia Tech had the cleaner season, Colorado had a stronger resume. Georgia Tech had the more dominant bowl win, Colorado had the tougher road. Georgia Tech won the coaches poll by 1 vote. Colorado won the AP poll with a much stronger first-place vote margin. But if these teams had met on the field with everything on the line, I think the Buffaloes' run game and defensive front eventually wears the Yellow Jackets down. Final verdict, 1990 Colorado is a split decision national champion.